Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Advancing Women in Intellectual Property panel discussion. This year, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing and protecting women's constitutional right to vote. Today's symposium celebrates women's entrepreneurship and highlights both how far we have come and how far we still need to go. Here at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, we have started initiatives to expand inclusion in intellectual property, especially to increase the participation of women in the innovation ecosphere. As you may know, in October of 2019, we provided Congress our Success Act report. And within the report, we outlined 6 different initiatives aimed at expanding the innovation ecosystem. These initiatives include a corporate IP toolkit that will help demystify the patent application process and encourage greater participation, an award to recognize significant efforts by individuals and organizations in accelerating diversity among entrepreneurs, and a national council for expanding innovation whose goal is to have a lasting impact in the inclusion of women and other underrepresented groups in STEM fields and in the IP community. And the USPTO will be rolling out the initial hub website on the USPTO website in the coming week or two, I'm happy to announce. And we look forward to many of these other programs being included on it, as well as some of the programs from our distinguished panelists. I now have the great pleasure of moderating a fabulous and distinguished panel of women leaders from across the intellectual property community, highlighting best practices that help them personally become the leaders that they are in this profession, and also contributed to their organizations becoming recognized innovators on the importance of advancing women in intellectual property. I'll now start with brief introductions. Our first panelist to my left is Lisa Dunner. Lisa is managing partner at Dunner Law PLLC, a certified woman-owned firm in Washington, D.C. She is past chair of the ABA section of intellectual property law, founding editor-in-chief of the ABA IPL's flagship IP magazine, Landslide, and she currently serves as a delegate of the section as well as commissioner on the ABA Commission for Women in the Profession. She is recognized as one of the world's top 250 women in IP and one of the top 1,000 trademark attorneys in the world. Lisa also served a 3-year term on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office Public Advisory Committee. Lisa holds a BA from Rollins College, and her law degree is from the John Marshall Law School. Next, we have Lisa Jorgensen. Lisa is the executive director of the American Intellectual Property Law Association, the AIPLA, a national bar association of over 12,000 members, and one of the world's leading policy and advocacy organizations in the field of intellectual property. Lisa has over 30 years experience in intellectual property. She is an emeritus member of the Association of Corporate Patent Counsel, having previously served as the secretary of the organization and as treasurer of the Intellectual Property Owners Association. Lisa also previously served as a member of the AIPLA Board of Directors and is currently an AIPLA Fellow. Lisa received her BS in biology from St. Mary's College in Indiana, her master's in industrial management from Purdue University, and her JD with distinction from the John Marshall Law School. And finally, Jessica Landacre. Jessica is the executive director of the Intellectual Property Owners Association, a worldwide trade association representing companies and individuals in all industries who own or are interested in intellectual property rights. Ms. Landaker brings a unique perspective to the position as the first woman and MBA graduate to serve as executive director in the association's 48-year history. With more than 2 decades of experience at IPO, she has demonstrated leadership and expertise in association management, resulting in expansive membership growth and the establishment of an affiliated 501c3 education foundation promoting the value of intellectual property rights. She shares a vision with the board of directors for expanding IPO's role in creating meaningful change for improving diversity in the profession. Jessica, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please let us all welcome them. This year's theme of the Women Entrepreneur Symposium is advancing the role of women and expanding inclusion in intellectual property. We can all agree that we've made tremendous strides since the passage of the 19th Amendment, but we still need to do so much more. So my first question is to all three of you. How have you seen the role of women in general, and more specifically women as inventors, women in firms, and women in leadership roles in the intellectual property community change over time? I'll start with Lisa.
Thank you. Well, I started practicing law in a law firm 25 years ago, and my first firm had about 70 attorneys. It was an IP boutique, and I think I was one of 5 women associates at the time. There were 2 partners, one of whom actually started out as a secretary and worked her way all the way up to partnership. And now I'm in a small IP boutique, but I moved on to a much larger firm right before that. And I've seen huge advances for women in IP and in law firms in general. IP being a very particular field where you need a science degree to be a patent attorney, it's always been very male-dominated. And I think women are really showing that they are strong in the sciences, and they've been moving up in firms. Firms are much more balanced in terms of men and women. They're putting women in leadership positions. I spent a lot of my time in the ABA, as Ms. Peters mentioned, and the head of the ABA, the largest association in the world, I believe, Bar Association, is a woman. So more and more women are moving into leadership positions, and I think it's a really great thing for us.
We're on the upswing. I'm glad to
Yes.
hear it. Lisa.
Thank you. So I came from a semiconductor company about 5 years ago into AIPLA, and I'd been there for almost 25 years. And it was a European-based semiconductor company, so I had an opportunity to work with a lot of inventors around the world. And I think then, back in the 1990 to 2000 frame, I didn't see as many women engineers as I do today. I saw more women, but certainly not at the halfway mark, if you will, in the chemical, and even as the semiconductor business morphed into biological areas, we saw more women, but not in this, again, still engineering and scientists, but still not a real high percentage in the corporation. I think women who achieve a very high success in whatever role they're in, they tend to stand out. You really can see them and recognize them, and you try to work with them as role models. I think as we look at law firms, I certainly see more women in leadership positions, not just in the firm themselves, but as they go out and market themselves to their clients and others. In the engineering field, I think it's still really tough, although I'd like to just point out WIPO just put a woman in charge of artificial intelligence at WIPO to collect all of the data, work on all these issues. So that's just a very recent example. She was just, I think, appointed maybe in the last couple of months. So we're seeing, and Laura, you're here, we're seeing organizations really tend to try to find those women. But how do you find them? You have to educate them, and you have to train them. So I think that there's, as you said, there's a lot of work to do I see us moving in the right direction. I still see us needing to do a lot more work in this area.
Thank you, Laura. First of all, I want to say what an honor and pleasure it is to share the stage with the three of you today. I think the fact that the four of us are up here suggests and is evidence that there is improvement in the number of women in leadership roles. On the other hand, I think the fact that we are four white women suggests more improvement is needed. The IPO Board of Directors, I've seen growth there in terms of the number of women represented on the board. These women generally hold the position of Chief IP Counsel in their companies. I think, though, it's not just a pipeline improvement. The IPO Board has taken deliberate steps in this direction. Diversity is at the core of who we are as a global trade association representing owners in all industries. Gender diversity is fundamental to who we are. So we are in the right direction. More work is needed.
I'd just like to follow up and ask you about the attrition of women. One thing I noticed in panels that I've been speaking on is that women will start off in a law firm and then they tend to move into corporations because the environment is more friendly. Can you comment on that?
Well, I left big firm life, did not move into a corporation, and I started my own law firm.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really so much because I was unhappy. I actually played professional tennis before I went to law school, and I'd always been sort of the master of my own fate. And while I can play the whole political game that you have to play in law firms, I think I'm much happier being my own boss and being the boss of the attorneys that work for me. But there is an attrition of women from law firms. I think in the older days it was in large part just because the work-life balance wasn't really there. Women that wanted to become mothers, law firms weren't always so forgiving of the lifestyle of a mother. I think that's really changed. I think clients actually are demanding that change. But I think women are leaving because they feel empowered to do what they want to do. That's the way I like to look at it.
Any other?
Yeah, so I actually started out in my legal profession in a very small litigation boutique, but before that I'd spent 10 years selling electrical equipment for Westinghouse with a bio major, go figure. And then I chose to go back into a corporation because I was incredibly comfortable inside a corporate environment. But I don't think it's really true, at least not for me, and I don't think it's true a lot of times for most people today to say that the corporate environment can be more forgiving than a law firm environment. I think the politics are just very different. And if you get comfortable with those politics at whichever type of an organization you're with, you can do very well.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add.
Very good. Another question for all of you. What are your organizations doing to advance women in intellectual property and expand opportunities for inclusion? I think I'll start with Jessica now that she's sipping water.
No problem.
Here we go.
No problem. In the last 4 or so years, IPO's taken some important steps in this area with the establishment of our Women in IP Committee, then a Diversity and Inclusion Committee, resource groups, and this year we're launching a mentoring program to leverage the deep level of experience and knowledge inside the IPO community for the purpose of developing the next generation of leaders. But I think it was truly in 2016 with the establishment of the Women in IP Committee where we made a giant leap forward. Hundreds of members joined this committee and came together to solve really important problems. So, for example, when the dismal statistic that fewer than 12% of inventors are women came out, the committee came together and said, what do we do to solve that? They came up with the Gender Diversity and Innovation Toolkit. This is a roadmap for organizations to use to address gender parity and innovation. Companies are now using this to increase the number of women named on patents. This year we're taking it on the road, making it more accessible to organizations, and I'm delighted to announce that in April we will be at the Silicon Valley office of the USPTO. IPO member Sandra Novak of 3M, who is a co-author of the toolkit, will be joined by the PTO, Diversity Lab, and the Chief IP Counsel of Facebook to have a conversation about expanding the innovation ecosphere. So a lot of good is coming from that. Oh, by the way, the toolkit is available for download to anyone for free on the public. Go to our website. But it's not just the Women in IP Committee, and it's not just that toolkit. It's the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. It's a group of people who have so much to say coming together and working on resources like gender pay gaps, like vague feedback, unconscious bias. I mean, there's just so much great work being done, and I've learned a ton from the group.
I'll just comment that you cited the 12% of inventors are women, and that is from the USPTO's Progress and Potential Report, which examined patents over a period of time and found that 12% of women were inventors in the year 2016.
Yep.
And that has launched a lot of the discussion, and the USPTO is very proud to be the instigator and fueling the fire to continue that dialogue. How is AIPLA addressing some of these issues?
So I first want to say, to IPO, you guys have just done a wonderful job at trying to identify all the various issues. The three of us know each other very well because we all have organizations that are directed to women in IP, diversity, and we really try to collaborate as well amongst ourselves to find lots of different ways that we can approach the problems that we all see, or one sees a problem and we get the others involved. I think there's a couple things with respect to helping women in IP, and one is once they're identified, and sometimes as we know, if you try to identify the women inventors at the PTO, you can't really necessarily do that so quickly and easily because you may not know whether they're a woman or not. But once you have identified and been able to reach out to the women IP practitioners, one thing is education, and the next one is leadership training. And for the education, the one thing I think that all of us do very well at, but I know AIPLA is also really focused on it, is to say, you need to be you have to take a holistic approach to how you represent your clients, whether you are in the PTO and your client happens to, it's the PTO, but you're working with the stakeholders, or if you're in a firm and you're working with clients, or in a corporation, that one corporation may be your client, but you need to learn to be a business attorney or a business IP practitioner. And that means that you should not only be the best patent attorney or the best patent agent or trademark or copyright practitioner, you also need to understand how to go across the borders. So you need to understand HR, you need to understand finance, you need to understand strategic planning. And when you can bring this other knowledge into what you do as a patent practitioner or a copyright practitioner, you will become a much better IP practitioner, a more holistic approach to your clients. And if you're working with corporations, either in-house or from a law firm, they will appreciate the fact that you can come in and understand their business. You may focus in on what a specific invention is or a specific trademark that they want to register, but they will have an appreciation for the fact that you can bring everything together in one package to support them. The other thing that we do, I think, really well at is leadership training. So we have almost 60 committees and task forces. Every committee has a chair and a vice chair. Almost every committee has a subcommittee with a chair and a vice chair. So we have roughly 120 chair and vice chairs at the most senior level of the committee structure. And of those 120, over 50 of them are women. So they're either going to be in a vice chair role where they're going to move up to chair, or they're going to be in a chair role where they've started in vice chair, moving to chair, with the possibility of moving on to our board of directors. Our board of directors are only 19 people, but we try very hard to get that good cross-section of diversity, because that's where the best ideas come from when you have diversity in the discussion group. So it's diversity between men and women, it's diversity between practice types, patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets. It's diversity between West Coast and East Coast, and in-house versus law firm. And we hit every area of diversity that we can so that we get the best discussions going to provide the most balanced positions that an association can take with respect to IP. And we really look hard to bring those women up through the committee structures and then potentially onto the board of directors.
That's fabulous. How about the ABA?
So all three associations are very similar in their structures, and I think we all would agree that in our approach to diversity, the ABA section of intellectual property law has a diversity action group that is specifically devoted towards looking for diverse committee lineups or panels of speakers. We're always focusing on diversity. But for women in particular, when I finished my term as chair of the section of intellectual property law, I founded the Women in IP Action Group, which surprisingly didn't exist. I've been a member of this section for a long time, and I think this similar group had tried to get off the ground years ago, and for some reason it never really did. So in 2015, I launched this group, and within 3 months, 400 members signed up, which really surprised me, impressed me, made me happy, but also sort of made me wonder what were all these folks doing before. And it's the most enthusiastic group that I've ever participated in. We have it broken down into 3 subcommittees, one which is dedicated solely to something called grit and growth. Now, I'm on the Commission for Women in the Profession, which is a huge honor. There's only 12 of us in the entire ABA. I'm the first IP woman to have been chosen for that, and I've learned a lot from these women. It's actually a little intimidating. These women are from other substantive backgrounds. They're very impressive. And Grit and Growth Toolkit is one of the big initiatives of the Commission. The Grit and Growth project is essentially talking about the people that have a grit and growth mindset are shown to have a higher predictor of success than, sorry, those of you that went to Harvard or Columbia or Yale and you graduated first in your class. If you're gritty and you have a growth mindset, meaning you're adaptable, you're flexible, you're shown to have the best potential to succeed. And there's been a lot of research on this. There's been a lot of books on this. The Commission has taken this on the road. The Women in IP Action Group, we're dedicating, the entire mission of this subcommittee is dedicated to grit and growth. We've taken it to law schools. We're going to take it to the PTO. We've taken it to in-house counsel. Eli Lilly, Nestle's going to have a program. We're taking it anywhere we can because we want to teach people. It was geared towards women, but frankly, men can get a lot out of it too. We want to teach people the tools that they need to survive in a tough world, no matter what profession you're in. And the thing that's interested me the most when I'm on a grit and growth panel are the people that come up to me afterwards. And in fact, most of the people who come up to me afterwards and say, you know what, I'm going to take this home and I'm going to teach my kids about this, because they just joined a lacrosse team, or they just joined football, or they just joined a tennis team. And I think this will help them succeed. And frankly, it does. It's across the board in any profession. And the IP section in the ABA as a whole, we're doing this for women, but men can benefit too. We make it a point to tell men that they can join the Women in IP Action Group. We do have a few guys that have joined, mostly out of duress, because I give them a hard time. But we're doing a lot, and I think all the associations are doing a really good job, and the PTO as well, in promoting women, in giving them the feeling that they can succeed and giving them the platform to succeed. I think all of us need to do that in whatever area that we're in. I think it's really important.
Let me add one comment.
Yes,
to play off of what you just said, Lisa, and also something what you said, Jessica. All of the associations, when, if you're in a law firm or if you're in a corporation and you're either too young or you're simply just not ready to be a partner or a chief IP counsel, these associations and other organizations, and PTO, you've got similar programs. There are mechanisms to really help put women into leadership roles long before they're going to be made a partner or they're going to be moving up into senior management in a corporation. And it's a skill set that they can learn from being on a committee, running a program, managing projects, managing people, that they might not have an otherwise really good opportunity to get from the position that they're in, either in their firm or their corporation. And I know all three of us do this, and there are lots of other organizations out there that do it well, local regional associations, and other areas of the country where you can kind of tie into organizations that can help you do this.
It's just listening to you all, what I'm getting out of this is that not only do your organizations promote women internally and with a conscious mind toward putting them into leadership roles so they can experience that, but you're also each developing toolkits or packages or something that can be put in their briefcase and taken out the door that they can move on with as well. And PTO certainly is supportive of this, and we're trying to do our part to encourage it too. So that's phenomenal. Jessica, I'm going to turn now to you in particular. What challenges did you face in your career? You're not from the legal realm as much, but you landed smack in the middle of it. And how did you overcome those challenges to become IPO's first female executive director? And what actions can we take to open more doors to talented women who are not necessarily in the legal field?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, starting with gratitude, I have been so fortunate to, throughout my 24 years at IPO, to have been surrounded by superb colleagues. I've had access to mentors, and I've had the support of my board of directors at various times throughout my career. So I have the deepest gratitude for that. Having said that, I have experienced the same microaggressions that other women have at various points. Like, for example, attending a meeting as a participant only to be asked to get the coffee or to make the copies. And this type of feedback informs women that in order to have a seat at the table, we have to strive to be perfect. That before we speak, we ought to be certain that what we are going to say is 100% accurate, well rehearsed, and hopefully not controversial. And the result of that is a lot of unheard ideas. And so what was pivotal for me was adopting a growth mindset. The point at which I embraced that making a mistake should not be a source of shame, but rather is an opportunity to learn and grow and be better was the point at which I started taking risks. So my advice to women, well, my advice to any high-functioning team is adopt a growth mindset. It will perpetuate free flow of ideas that leads to innovation. My other piece of advice would be surround yourself by really smart people and give them a voice. Don't be threatened. Mentor if you're in a position to do so. Sponsor if you're in a position to do so. And collaborate. We are going to move the needle and make progress as a group, not as individuals.
Thank you. Lisa, what overarching advice do you have for women to stay in the game and ultimately succeed, especially given your professional tennis background?
I tend to apply my competitive sports to my everyday life. For those of you that know me pretty well, I see Wynn laughing in the front row, and Elizabeth and these guys here. So I grew up playing tennis with guys, and so I had to learn not to cry and learn not to whine and learn not to get kind of annoyed at things, and so it does make you gritty. I'm a huge fan of people that have engaged in sports activities because I think you learn a lot from that. But generally, the advice I would give is, I'm gonna say a bunch of cliches, which is don't sweat the small stuff. There's a lot of small stuff that happens in any corporation, in a law firm, in any environment that you're in. There's going to be tons of small stuff. You've got to learn not to take things personally. It's very hard to do. And I do think you have to really keep your eye on the ball. I think you have to focus on what your goals are. I really agree with Jessica's comment. You've got to surround yourself with not just bright people, but people that believe in you, people that think that you can succeed. Don't surround yourself with naysayers, with negative people, people who are trying to put you down or bring you down. There's going to be lots of people like that. You've got to surround yourself with people that make you feel good. I was really lucky to have been raised by parents that were very supportive, that made me feel like I could do anything in the world, my sister too. And I think that's important. I think you've got to keep that mindset, keep your goals intact, surround yourself with people that you like. It's a hard life out there, just working all the time. But if you really love what you do, it's great. I love what I do, and I love my colleagues, and I love being around them, and it's fun to me. So I think if you can focus on the things that make you happy, happiness breeds success, in my point of view.
I like that. Lisa, looking over to the year 2025, what do you see as AIPLA's role in advancing women inventors and entrepreneurs?
Well, that's a really great question, and it's got probably a lot of complicated various ways you could look at this. I think the most important thing actually is to be able to identify who are those women inventors, who are the entrepreneurs. And I would then say, find ways to include them in whatever's going on. If they need funding, if they need IP support, if they need ways to understand how to run a business, if it's a startup versus being inside a large corporation, and we're going to be you'll be looking at this in various different ways depending upon where you can find these women. And I would suggest a couple things that need to be done, some of which we are currently working on, which is to find ways to bring them to IP professionals if they're looking for support in the IP area. And that's not so easy to do. One of the things that we started doing is at our annual meeting in October every year, this will only be the second one this next October, is finding a way to reach out to startup companies, and hopefully with women who are starting up companies. And they're going to be the inventors going forward. They're going to be, potentially a corporation that's going to look like a Microsoft in the future. But they have to start somewhere. And so we've given them a platform to come to our event, our annual meeting, and show what they have for products or services. But it gets them to start networking with IP professionals in general, and especially when their products are geared towards the IP profession. But then they get to ask a lot of questions, because the law firm people that they talk to, they will have represented other startups. They'll meet other startups. And I think if we can find ways to identify them and get them included in the activities that are going to support them, that's going to be really important. I know that, for example, you guys are working at the PTO very heavily on pro bono. I think in some respects, if you're looking at startups, and pro bono could almost go hand in hand. In startups, you're going to have a lot of people who probably don't have a lot of financing. They could be in an underrepresented class. And if you're finding women who are working in these areas, small SMEs and startups, they're going to need that kind of support. And maybe we can hook them into the pro bono activities. If you're in a larger corporation, I think it's sort of a flip side of saying, how do you encourage employers to find the women in their organizations, or to hire women for their organizations that can come up through the chain of activities from first time engineer up through management and up to senior management. But you have to find ways to include them in all the activities that are going to be important for them to be successful.
I think that's so fascinating, because one thing I've been seeing is that a lot of entrepreneurs do not know about intellectual property. They're super smart biochemists, all the rest of it, but they really don't know what the difference is between a trademark and a patent. And they are embarrassed to ask, right? They're supposed to be super smart. So, oh yeah, it's not that IP stuff. I don't have the money to deal with that yet, so I don't need to worry about it. It can be a kind of an attitude. So our regional offices and all of us here are trying very hard to get the message out to demystify IP for the entrepreneur, but also for those people in the corporations who are engineers slogging away writing code. how do you get them to look up from their computer and say, I can be an inventor too? So I congratulate each of your organizations for helping to get that word out and trying to reach the people who need it the most. I have another question here for all of you, and that is, are there specific women in intellectual property now or in history that have inspired you, and who and why? I'll start with Lisa.
Well, this is a tough question because there's a lot of women that have inspired me. So I'm going to take the latter part of your question and just talk about in general, not specifically to IP. And in honor of the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, I have to say the suffragists inspire me and have inspired me. They're women that have stood up for something that they believed in. They went to great lengths to do it. They were thrown in jail. They weren't treated well. They were thrown off the streets. They persisted, and look where we are today. And frankly, if they hadn't done that, probably none of us would be sitting on the stage today. They paved the road for so many things more than just the women's right to vote. They started to pave the road for women's equality and for women inventors and for women IP attorneys and for women leaders and for heads of the PTO. They started everything, frankly. And so I'd have to say they, along with my mom, who I would have to throw my hat off to, were really inspiring to me.
That's phenomenal. Thank you indeed. Lisa Jorgensen.
Yeah, I'll start with a general comment first, which is I think anybody that I would look up to at some point in time has probably also been not only a mentor, but a potential sponsor, a colleague, a friend, and maybe not all at the same time, but hopefully, and if not, you know, at some point during my career, I've looked up to several people. There are probably a couple people I would point out. One is, and she doesn't know this, so she's probably going to hear this for the first time, which is Meg Bowler. Meg Bowler is a partner in her own firm in Houston. She came from a large corporation, or a large law firm, sorry. She does both patents and trademarks. But Meg has been a mentor for me since well before I got to AIPLA. Many years while I was at ST Microelectronics, through several years there, and then up through transitioning from there to AIPLA, and my 5 years now at AIPLA. The other woman in my life is my mom. My mom went to Michigan State and tried to be an engineer. She had one professor who said, I will not pass you in my class, and this is a class you have to have. So she transitioned out and became an English and Spanish double major, but she never gave up on education and things that she wanted to do, so she became a librarian. But as she and my father decided to move around the country for my dad's job, she was the head librarian for a medical university. She was the head librarian for a law school university. And she never gave up on what she wanted to try to accomplish, even though she got stopped at being an engineer. Now this is back in the 40s, so I guess that tells you something between then and now. But I would say both of them.
Awesome, awesome. Jessica.
So I love this question because it allows me to be a little bit personal. So I would select someone that the USPTO has featured on your guest lecture series and the IPO Education Foundation has interviewed on our podcast, Stroke of Genius, and that is Temple Grandin, the autism advocate and inventor. She demonstrates that as a woman with autism who doesn't fit into society's expectations about social norms and behavior, despite her disability, or maybe because of her disability, she has been able to contribute to society and innovation and be successful. Perhaps it is the fact that she perceives her environment differently than the rest of us that has enabled her to identify problems, or that possibly she perseverates on details that would be lost on the rest of us, has given her maybe the persistence to find the solution. As a mother of a son on the autism spectrum, I often struggle with how much do I push him to fit in with society and what we expect, and how much do I encourage him to lean into the fact that he is different and unique. And what if his superpower is that he's on the autism spectrum? I think that Temple Grandin is a terrific role model for people on the autism spectrum, and frankly for women, that you don't have to fit into a particular archetype in order to be successful. You can be who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, at this point, I'm going to turn to our illustrious audience and ask if you all have questions for our esteemed panel. Yes.
Hi, I have a question. Last year I
Very nice.
I did not have any money for a patent attorney to help me, and finally a lady took on my case. But in the process of developing the grant, I believe I have multiple patents, and it's beyond, I believe, her pro bono capabilities, and I was wondering how there may be broader legal help for people inspired in this audience, as I was last year, to believe that you could stand up and do something to get help.
So I guess I'll kind of take this and then I'll open it to you all. There is a panel coming up very shortly. It's going to be talking about pro bono and pro se assistance out of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So there's, first of all, some help for you there. The legal process is very complicated, and this is one of the big pushes of the USPTO to help demystify that process so that more inventors are not so daunted and will actually start engaging. Now, Lisa, I think you were just saying the AIPLA has a structured pro bono assistance program as well.
Well, we have a pro bono committee.
Committee.
So we look for ways that we can help in any area. It doesn't just have to be patents, but we've been talking with the USPTO, trying to understand what you guys offer and figuring out ways that we can incorporate some of the great ways to be able to put people in touch with each other, the pro bono practitioner and the inventor that needs the support. And there's a lot of work being done around the country, regional and nationwide, to try to identify those like yourself, congratulations by the way, but like yourself that need assistance in trying to match them with an attorney or patent agent in the technical field that they can help and really carry it forward for you.
We have, the ABA has a pro bono committee as well. I'll give you my card when I get off here, and I'll see if I can help you out. Okay.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, lady. I'm sorry, it's dark.
We are online, so if you're asking a question, we do have 2 mics available.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be here in attendance. My name is Kimberly Cates Bell, and I wanted to know, I heard you guys mention diversity, and it's a great theme, and it's something great to strive for, but I want to know what types of ways have you been going and actively pursuing to make diversity a priority, or what tools are you using to reach people so that they know that diversity is, let me see, I'm trying to say, so they know that, you know, that there's a presence and a place for people of diverse backgrounds.
Turn it to Jessica first.
Yeah, so, you know, I spent a fair amount of time talking about our Gender Diversity and Innovation Toolkit, which is aimed at organizations and creating a culture, giving them a 4-step process for creating a culture in their organization to get more women involved in the process of patenting. We are the next phase, well, let me just say, I'm looking forward to developing some metrics to measure how much progress that actually yields over time. The next step that we are looking at is expanding beyond gender. Both Lisas, I think, discussed a bit that getting the demographic information is the first hurdle. Gender was the most readily available data we had, and so that was one of the reasons we focused on that. But we are looking to move beyond gender to help. Again, we're focused on the organizations, giving them the tools to create a more inclusive culture.
I can just say for the ABA, whenever the intellectual property law section is just one section within the big ABA, there's many substantive sections and entities, and the ABA actually requires a form that's filled out whenever you put on an educational program or a panel or any kind of event. You have to complete the diversity section, and you have to state the diverse backgrounds of each of the speakers or the panel members or the groups that you're engaging to put on this program. And so not only are we very aware and make a concerted effort to have people of all diverse backgrounds on our panels and on our programs, but it's actually a mandate by the bigger ABA, so we actually have to check a box. So we're very aware of the importance of not just having all white women or all white men up on a panel. We want people with all different kinds of diverse backgrounds to participate. We want to encourage them to participate. Our Women in IP group within the IP section is a group of very diverse people, and lots of different folks have had different types of opportunities to speak or to participate in substantive programs of whatever sort. So we encourage it, we promote it, and we do whatever we can. And I thank you for the question. It's a really important question.
So, like the rest of the organizations here, the other two, that we all have diversity committees. So to say that by itself doesn't really mean a whole lot unless you understand, what's being done within those committees to try to, find more people to be inclusive. But one of the things that Jessica, you said, is the demographics. It's really difficult to identify, or unless you self-identify that you're in a diverse that you have a diverse background. And we are working really hard to try to find ways to be able to get people to self-identify as members of AIPLA. But once that's done, we are working on ways of creating sort of affinity groups that bring people together. And then it's apparent, I go back to the sort of the two things I said earlier. One is education and one is leadership training. And so we are working with these affinity groups of diversity people to really hone in on education. What do you need to help you with your career? But then what can AIPLA do for you to help you move into leadership roles?
Well, and I'll just echo that. At the USPTO, I mean, we are committed to inclusion and expanding the innovation ecosphere. This is a day to celebrate women, and so we're focused on that today. But really, all the PTO's efforts go across all demographic and geographic realms. I will say, too, that one thing PTO has done is try to highlight innovators from all different backgrounds. We have our Journeys of Innovation on our website. And part of our toolkit and our hub we're going to be introducing very, very soon in the next couple of weeks will include an affinity group, community group, if you will, template to help inspire other companies and communities to allow people to be themselves with other people like themselves and find role models within their own groups as well. How am I doing on time? I think we're one more question. Speak real loud.
Okay. I'm really encouraged to hear what's being done to discourage participation. But from what I've heard, getting the patent is considered essential. To get a patent as a woman or as a minority is motivation. But what is the U.S. PTO doing to protect women from conventions against them and ensure participation? Just this morning, I was at a hearing for an appeal. Inventor I look up to her patents have been
So I guess I'll take that since it was addressed to the PTO. We are very supportive of all innovators in helping them to get the best patent that they can, given the restrictions of the system and our legal restrictions, with the help of many organizations like these wonderful women here. When it comes to enforcement, we are not an enforcement agency, although we do have the Patent and Trademark Trial Appeal Board, which will examine patents after they have been issued to review whether the issuance was actually appropriate or not. And what we found is that some of those patents should not have a grant in light of new evidence that's been brought forward. We found that that scope has been percentage-wise pretty small in comparison to the number of patents that are granted every year. So this is not a PTAB discussion here today. This is more about diversity and inclusion. So I'm going to set that, the rest of that conversation aside for another day.
And Laura, I'm sorry, we do have one more question here, if you can. She's been waiting on a crash.
I'm so sorry, and I was turning this way and I didn't see you.
No problem. I think I heard reference to the importance of early exposure for, getting individuals involved in STEM and entrepreneurship in particular. And I've taken on an initiative to try to bring resources and opportunities to my community. I live in Southeast DC, and that's a typically underrepresented community in a lot of areas, STEM in particular, law. And I was wondering, my biggest problem is I gather all the resources and I hand it on a silver platter to some of the teachers' leadership, and there's not a lot of buy-in. So I was wondering if from a panel of leaders, if you had an opinion in regards to if someone was coming to you with an initiative, what would inspire you to buy in to what essentially they were selling to you, even though you might think they might grab on. But there could be various reasons if you're in a leadership position why you might not immediately, leap onto an opportunity, if you had any opinions or perspective in that regard.
Well, I would probably say two things. One is it first has to be practically viable, whatever the initiative is. And in our world, in the association world, I guess if I could narrow it to that, would be it also has to be politically viable. And of course, it has to be an initiative that can come in within a budget that can be managed. I don't know what the project is, so you have to look at resources, human resources, financial resources, and then they have the project or whatever you're working on would have to be both practical and politically viable.
You inspired me just by the fact that you want to bring this initiative to a part of DC that sounds like it's underrepresented. So I'd be happy to hear whatever initiative you have offline if you'd like and see if we can help you out.
Oh, thank you.
Similarly, IPO has an education foundation, and we have what we call an IP patch program. Would love to also speak with you offline about coming in to the community and offering up to schools. It may be that the teachers aren't interested because they don't have the tools, and we have curriculum that makes it fun for kids to learn about STEM and the role that intellectual property has in the innovation ecosphere.
Okay.
And I should mention we have the National Inventor Hall of Fame right upstairs where they have tried to caricature some of the great inventors of our time to try and make it more inspiring and relatable to young people. And of course, they have Camp Invention, which has a wonderful program for young people. And I know they're looking for opportunities to go to more underrepresented groups along the way.
Yes, I've been talking with the Department of Education Outreach, and they've been giving me the information. I've been trying to hand it over, but it's difficult, with the buy-in. But yeah, thank you.
We'll get you going. We'll help support you.
Okay, thank you.
So unfortunately, that was our last question for today. I want to thank our distinguished panel. Thank you so much for coming today. And we look forward to your hearing from you again in the coming year. Thank you again.
Thanks for having
Thank you so
us.
much.